More news later here on France 24. Time now for the debate. They rejected dialogue. They chose violence. The words of Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, blaming the Muslim Brotherhood for the bloodbath that followed the July 2013 overthrow of his predecessor, the now jailed Mohamed Morsi. In a wide-ranging interview with France 24, Sisi drawing the link between Hamas and jihadists in Syria and Iraq, more broadly, painting himself as a rampart against Islamists. The interview comes on the day Cairo announced the arrest of yet another senior figure from the Muslim Brotherhood, former government minister Mohamed al-Bishir. And with liberal activists, even foreign journalists from Al Jazeera behind bars, what direction for Egypt? Is the crackdown justified? Nearly 4 years after the fall of Hosni Mubarak. Which way is the Arab world's largest nation heading? Today, in the France 24 debate, Sisi's Egypt. With us to talk about it from Cairo, Egyptian journalist and blogger Wael Eskandar. Joining us as well, columnist Mona El-Tahawi. Welcome to the show. I want to welcome here to our studios political economy consultant Mohamed Elalfy. Welcome back to
my pleasure. Thank you.
To the show as well. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter. Our hashtag F24Debate. We have all the conditions for Egyptians to live in peace. Those are the words of Egypt's president who drew that parallel between Hamas and the radical groups that have been operating in the Sinai. He spoke to France 24's Mark Perlman and Sonia Dridi.
In my opinion, extremist thoughts, or what is called political Islam, have the same roots. One cannot separate the Islamic State group from what's happening in Afghanistan or from the group Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis. We cannot separate those groups, and we should not separate them.
All right, Mark Perlman, one of those who interviewed Egypt's president, he joins us now from Cairo. Mark, it was full steam ahead, you might say, for President al-Sisi.
Yes, clearly the president's message was very clear. There is a need to tackle head-on what he calls political Islam. And he doesn't really distinguish between the Muslim Brotherhood, be it here in Egypt or in Gaza, namely Hamas, and other groups like the Organization of the Islamic State, known as Daesh here in the region. He doesn't say they're the same, but he puts them in the same corner, and he says, we need to fight them here in Egypt, especially in the Sinai area, and we're taking all the steps we need to. We need to fight them in neighboring Libya, which is becoming, according to him, the most dangerous terrorist hub in the region, in addition to hunting them down in Syria and Iraq. And so clearly he's warning the Europeans, the Western world, that they need to side with people like him, like Egypt's action are the ones that should be not criticized for human rights abuses, but supported because they're fighting for Egypt's security, the region's security, and to a larger degree to the world's security.
A military man who's shed his fatigues for civilian clothes to be president. How did he seem to you, Mark?
Well, you know, he doesn't grant that many interviews. It's the first media interview he grants to European media. He did 2 interviews with the American media. He's clearly, you know, someone who's at ease, who knows probably what questions are going to come to him, and he answers in a very quiet way. He doesn't get emotional. He obviously likes to talk about military issues. He's been the head of the army, obviously, for some times, but he's also sometimes very clear on some issues when you ask him touchy questions.
All right, Mark Perlman, many thanks for that. That interview, by the way, will be again rebroadcast live, and you can see it on our website, France24.com. We're going to react to some of the statements we've been hearing. First of all, let me go to you, Mona El-Tahawi, and what we heard at the top where from President Al-Sisi when he said extremist thought and political Islam have the same roots. Your thoughts?
Well, I think what Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is doing is nothing new, really. This is the latest in a long line of rhetoric that the Egyptian regime, regardless of who has been in charge of it, has used to justify its hold on power and to persuade its Western allies to side with it against, the quote-unquote crazy fanatics. Now, I am no fan of the Muslim Brotherhood, and I was no fan of Mohamed Morsi, but I'm also definitely not a fan of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And I think what his rhetoric does and what his incredibly outrageous violations of human rights in Egypt, anyone who's followed what happened in Egypt over the past year can see clearly that the kind of human rights violations that he is sitting on top of are, in fact, just fueling the fire of those fanatics that he's pointing to, and they're actually making it almost impossible for the rest of us who offer the best alternatives to those extremists, because he's jailing everybody and he's silencing everybody. So I think that he's just the latest in line of the fearmongers that we've had in power.
Do you agree with that, Mohamed Elalfy, that basically this is just polarizing Egypt more and it's creating more fanatics, this crackdown?
As you know, Egypt now is, let's say it clear, fighting against terrorists. In a part of Egypt, as you know, as all people know that in Sinai. And today morning we have two explosions, one near to Helwan University and the other one in the main train station in downtown. So what are the people talking about? They should understand and knows well that yes, we are with the rights of the others to work and calling for democracy, for human rights, but via official organizations. But to work under a condition, if we will not rule the country, we will kill you. No, of course we will work against you forever. No, we will not allow to the terrorists to use the cover of human rights or the cover of calling for democracy to kill the people, to control the country. We will not allow for our country to be Libya, again, to be Syria, to be Iraq.
All right, but there's a big leap, is there not, between that and putting in jail a lot of people, including, people like bloggers and journalists?
As you know, there is President Sisi issued a law a few days ago to allow to him to transfer the arrested journalists, especially the foreigners, if they are not accused them before they are working against national security of Egypt. If there is it's a normal, he will release them to them country. But if you are talking about Egyptians. Journalists or something else like that, I think they are under the Egyptian law. Of course, if there is no something against them, they will release them. Today, most people blaming Egypt, especially in media, inside and outside. We are everywhere in the world. The people respect law. There is no comment for the judgment. So why the people would like from all over the world to blame the courts in Egypt, to blame the law? You must respect our law as we respect your law and you respect your system.
Let's go to Cairo again and join this time Wael Eskandar, Egyptian journalist and blogger. Thanks for being with us here in the France 24 debate. We're talking, Wael, about remarks that President Sisi made on our channel, talking about this connection, he said, between extremist thought and political Islam. What's the mood right now on that score in Cairo?
Well, you see, the real problem is Sorry.
Go ahead. We're listening.
I can't hear very loud. Okay. Yeah, there is a real problem at the moment that we have is that everything that is happening in the country is related to a fight against terror, a fight against extremism, you know, and this is just like the question of national security is always in place. But I think the real problem is that people don't address the injustices that happen in the name of national security. And I think on a very long run, this is going to come back and haunt Egypt in a very, very horrible way, because this is the breeding ground for more extremism. You cannot fight terror with terror, and basically the state, in the name of national security, is using a lot of the terror methods that they claim the extremists are using. So, for example, not having fair trials. This will breed a lot of injustices, and these injustices can take us to even more extremism when people don't find any peaceful means of expressing their problems and trying to, you know, petition the government to do something for them, you know, to make their lives better.
You can understand, Mohamed Elalfy, that here in the West we recoiled when we saw trials where what 600 people convicted in the same day in the same place. It's justice a little too swift in those cases.
As you know, as our friend said from Cairo, it's we are not telling the people to choose between freedom and national security. No one is making this. No one is making this or forcing them to choose one of them. But people should know or must know we are in a dangerous stage. Now, for example, if you are working against your country, what, for example, let's making a big question and ask all viewers and the guests too. If you are working against your country and your country has the documents against you, what is the situation will be? I think the first step will be to General Attorney, then to the court. Then it's according to the law of your country, of my country. But if now you are telling me the country can't save the people inside the country, the government can't.
Yes, but we're saying in the name of this fight against radicals to have these mass trials, for instance, doesn't it just undermine the authority of the state?
Yes. No. Let me clarify. Now Egypt really is fighting against terrorists. But the problem now is we have a big part of people don't like to understand that we have to support this government and this president to save to win against this terrorists and to save peace at the same time. But if you will continue. Now, the government can't save peace. The government can't serve the people. The government can't save security. You are working against your national security by making a discrepancy to the Egyptian people to destroy the country. Let's work together. Let's work together.
Just a second. Mona El-Tahawi, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Mona El-Tahawi, your thoughts right now on rule of law right now in Egypt?
Well, you know, this is the thing. I think we need to express this very starkly. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has executive power as president. Because we don't have a parliament in Egypt right now, he also has legislative power that he's taken upon himself. And almost every day, he is issuing incredibly repressive laws that nobody can challenge. The judiciary is also on his side because most judges in Egypt were appointed by the Egyptian regime under Hosni Mubarak. The police are on his side. The media are on his side because many journalists have been frightened into either silence or have been jailed. And the streets belong to him because of an incredibly repressive protest law. So what rule of law are we talking about? What avenue do we have to oppose Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and his regime? Basically none. So I would beg to differ with your studio guest, and I actually think what he's saying is complete nonsense, excuse me, but what rule of law? What respect and how dare a regime use national security under these conditions where Egyptian jails are filled to the brim with not just adults but children as well. There are more than 20,000 people in Egyptian jails, most of whom have not undergone any kind of trial, let alone the unfair trials that you mentioned, the mass trials and the mass death sentences. So what are we talking about here? We're really talking about a fascist dictatorship that is using national security to silence its opponents. It's that simple.
All right, disagreement on that. Let's talk about the actual situation from these Islamist radicals. Last week, fighters in the Sinai Desert claiming responsibility for the attack on a military barracks and pledging allegiance to Islamic State jihadists fighting in Syria and Iraq. The Ansar Beit al-Makti, the group beyond sparingly opening the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza. Cairo setting up a buffer zone near the Rafah crossing, insisting it's only part of the plan, dismissing reports of protests by the local population. President al-Sisi saying that the locals near Rafah agreeing to be evacuated and that in any case they'll be rehoused.
We will never allow anyone to launch attacks from our territory against the neighbors or against Israel.
Well, Eskandar, how's it going in your view, this fight against Islamist radicals in the Sinai?
Well, first we have to agree that there is a risk of radicalization and that extremists must be fought. But I think that the problem is with fighting them is that their ideas are not addressed at all. I think the problem is that using more violence and power against them is not actually working out very well. We've seen the war on terror and the pledge and the policies in order to fight the war on terror, but obviously it's increasing. So obviously it's not really working out very well. You see, the problem is that right now the country and the regime is violating the constitution that it asked everyone to back up. So right now it's just a matter of military commands in the name of national security, and we don't know, why everything is happening the way it is. We don't have any kind of blueprint to follow. And this way, I think it does undermine the state that it does not follow its own constitution. And it undermines the entire fight, because that way people don't feel a sense of justice. And I think, and I'm very afraid that a lot of the people who already have ideas of like very radical Islamism might join the more extremist radicals and create more violence.
But what do you do in the Sinai? How do you deal with the problem there? And do you basically seal off the border between Egypt and Gaza as well?
The question of Sinai is a very complex question, but it's a result of so many things that have happened in the past, I think. The problem is that we've always said that Sinai needs real development. It needs to feel that it's part of Egypt, but it doesn't work if you just only oppress the people without giving them any kind of escape, some kind of economic stimulus, some kind of rights. It's very, very poor working conditions there, and people aren't very well treated. So the problem then becomes, how do you gain over the community? And I think not a lot of effort has been done that way, because when all you have is a hammer, then all problems look like a nail.
All right, we come back and pick up on this point with the rest of our panel. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.